Hi, welcome to the Healthy Mummy Movement. Healthy home, healthy food, healthy gut, happy child summit. My name is Jade Venables and I'm your host for today. And today I'm very excited to interview Dr. Tom O'Brien. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. And I'm really well. And I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. It's a real pleasure. I love the title of your summit. And moms are boots on the ground. Most important for a healthy family is educating moms. And you don't have to be a science geek to get the best information of how do I protect my child and raise a healthy family. Yeah. You don't need to be a geek, but you do have to understand some of the concepts. I just read in the paper this morning that a contract has been signed that in Great Britain, a power company that uses coal is transitioning over to using wood pellets instead of coal. Because in Great Britain, burning wood is considered neutral. In the rest of the world, it produces carbon toxins. But Great Britain, somehow, they got it wood's neutral.
Wow.
So they have a contract now with the state of Virginia in the United States. They're going to clear the old growth forests, just plow them down and make wood pellets and ship the pellets over to England to be used for fuel so they don't burn coal.
Wow.
Utter nonsense in terms of the big picture of the health of the planet, right? But that kind of stuff is happening everywhere in the world. It's happening with your food. It's happening with these crazy cell phones. It's happening in every aspect, the plastics that we use. There is so much to learn. It's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And the boots on the ground, most important person is mom.
Yes.
Because my daughter, I have a granddaughter now, my first, and it's wonderful to see my daughter. Don't mess with my baby.
Yeah.
Anything, whatever it takes to protect her baby, she'll go up against her pediatricians. She'll listen to her pediatricians, but then if she gets some information that makes sense to her, she'll go back and ask the questions. That don't mess with my baby.
Yeah.
So it's an honor for me to talk to moms today about all of this.
Thank you so much. I'll just let the viewers know a little bit about yourself. So Dr. Tom O'Brien is a world-renowned expert in the field of gluten-related disorders, non-celiac, gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, and their link to other chronic conditions, including autoimmune diseases and disorders. He is the founder of thedoctor.com, which was created to educate the public about undiagnosed and undertreated gluten-related disorders, which affect up to 30% of the population. He views the lack of recognition, diagnosis, and treatment of these disorders as a massive public health crisis. Dr. O'Brien serves on the, Dr. O'Brien serves on the faculty of the Institute of Functional Medicine. His certified gluten practitioner course revolutionizes the way healthcare professionals and coaches diagnose and treat patients suffering from gluten-related disorders. Dr. O'Brien founded and hosted the world's first gluten summit, theglutensummit.com, where he interviewed 29 experts and opinion leaders on the topic of gluten-related health issues. So definitely the doctor to chat with today. So that's awesome. So maybe we can start with maybe for the viewers that are watching and really unsure of symptoms of, celiac disease and gluten intolerances. So maybe if we can start with the real basics and some symptoms and signs, maybe that would be great.
Oh, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Celiac disease is the autoimmune disease for which there is more science than any other autoimmune disease, because it's the one disease that every researcher agrees we know what the trigger is. Mm-hmm. The trigger is wheat.
Yeah.
Now, for multiple sclerosis or rheumatoid arthritis or psoriasis or lupus, there are many different triggers.
Yeah.
There's not one trigger. And for celiac disease, we know you don't eat wheat, you don't get celiac disease. So it's really simple. But the way that it manifests, initially, the people that are, we now know, the worst of the worst in celiacs, excuse me, they were children. They had a failure to thrive. They were thin. Their bones didn't develop properly. They got rickets, and so their knees would bow out when they're walking because their bones didn't develop properly. Severe, severe malnutrition. And that was identified as celiac disease. Now we know that it can manifest way outside the gut. Oh, and these kids had big bloated bellies, and they just couldn't eat very much. They got diarrhea, big bloated bellies. But now we know the only symptoms of celiac disease may be in your brain. You know, for every one celiac patient that has gut symptoms, there are 8 that don't. They've got brain symptoms or kidney symptoms or liver symptoms or lung symptoms, that it can manifest anywhere in the body.
Right.
So that was startling, and that came out over the last 30 years. There's over 20,000 research studies on this, the problems with wheat and how they might manifest. So we now know the way to look at this. Let me back up for a moment.
Yeah. See, some people, can I just say, some people say there's not enough studies. What's your say on that, just quickly?
Well, that's a common comment from doctors who haven't read very much.
Yeah, okay.
They read a couple, and then the scapegoat is, well, we need more research. No, we don't. It's really clear. You just have to read the research, you know. And so most doctors don't have time to read the new research. They're busy just trying to keep up with what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
It's very common.
Yeah, okay.
So every degenerative disease, every disease that happens to your children, that happens to your husband, that happens to you, every degenerative disease at the cell level, the cell is always on fire. It's a disease of inflammation. So the bottom line is you want to live an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. That's the bottom line. So if every disease is a disease of inflammation, the first thing you want to do is stop throwing gasoline on the fire.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to learn, what's gasoline on the fire? Well, for many people, it's wheat, even though they don't get any gut symptoms. For other people, it might be radiation from cell phones and putting these batteries next to your brain. For somebody else, it could be toxic chemicals. You know, it's just these things accumulate in our body, and we're trying to, your body's always trying to protect you. So it's allocating its resources to fight toxic weed or to fight red dye number 13 in the licorice that you're eating, or to fight the mercury that's in the tuna fish that you're eating, or your immune system is constantly trying to protect you. And what's happening is that the immune system is getting overwhelmed, that we live in such a toxic world today. The food that we're eating, if it's GMO food or the chemicals that are added to the foods, the air that we're breathing, you know, there's 5 different types of Alzheimer's. My friend, Dr. Dale Bredesen, wrote his book last year, The End of Alzheimer's. And he's at UCLA and runs the Buck Institute for Research on Alzheimer's. They're reversing Alzheimer's now. They've got over 100 patients in his book that they talk about reversing Alzheimer's, completely reversing it. It took 5 years, 5 years. And there's 37 things on the checklist that you have to look for. Do they have a wheat sensitivity? Get it out of there. Do they have a dairy sensitivity? Get it out of there. Do they get 7+ hours of sleep a night? Make sure they do. Do they walk every day? Teach them to walk. You know, all of these things, and you reverse the most terrifying disease that we all think about in this world today.
Really it's a package, really. Like the health journey on recovering from disease, illness, and things is really a package, isn't it? And that's something I've learnt in all of these interviews. Is prior to doing this interview, it was number one for me was the gut, because that's what I was taught with my son. But after, you know, I'm heading really towards the end of my summit now, and, you know, wow, it is just a huge package. It's
And
every little thing matters. And if we
you're
just
absolutely
change
right.
it, yeah.
You're absolutely right. Every attendee here, every one of you that's going to listen to these interviews, you're going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You're going to be completely overwhelmed out of the incredible amount of information that you're about to learn, which is really a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you get frozen. It's like, where do I start?
Yeah.
How do I begin? Because there's so much I didn't know that the flame retardant clothing on the blankets on my daughter's bed leaks out toxic chemical gases. I didn't know that. What do I do? Do I throw away the blankets? I mean, you're going to ask so many questions.
Yeah.
So I think a message that I could give to everyone is, in the Museum of Science in Florence, there is a display. It's a round marble stand with a glass dome. It stands about this high. It's Galileo's finger. And Galileo bequeathed that all of his inventions could be on display for all of posterity, as long as they also displayed his finger.
Yeah.
Now, it happened to be Galileo's middle finger.
Right.
It was his last message to the church.
Wow.
And if you go on Amazon, there's a couple of books. Just type in Galileo's finger, and you can read the stories of how he was suppressed in his lifetime. You know, but I use that picture when I'm teaching doctors and general public. I throw that picture up on the screen, and I say, you know, when you sit in a seminar all weekend, doctor, you're going to be taking notes furiously. You know, depending on the quality of the speakers, you're going to pages and pages of notes. Read this research study, order this product, give this to this patient, do this, check this blood test. You'd have pages and pages of notes. And you go back to the office on Monday morning, you don't have time to read any of it.
Yeah.
Because you're back in your crazy life, right? And everybody laughs. Oh, yeah. That's the way it's going to be on this summit. You're going to hear so many wonderful pieces of information, but you can say, my God, there's so much. Where do I start?
Yeah.
And you're almost immobilized. So I came up with a philosophy in my life, in my personal life, because I've been going to these seminars, these professional seminars for 38 years now, right? And I suffered from that immobilization on Monday morning. Yeah. So I said, one thing, if there's one thing that I walk away from this weekend with, just one thing that I implement in the practice for the rest of my career, then the thousands of dollars to pay the registration, to be out of my office, to fly to another city, to have a room in a hotel, the thousands of dollars I spent and the time away from my family was worth it, if there's one thing. So the way you approach this summit, I'd suggest, is that you have that big picture view. There's two things to remember with one finger. First, one thing, just one thing. And the second thing is 1 hour a week. If you allocate 1 hour a week to listen to this summit, you'll go through it quickly the first time, but then after that, you'll get the summit, and 1 hour a week, I'm going to listen to that interview about cell phones again, because my daughter, she's 11 now and she wants a cell phone. I need to listen to that interview. And then you're going to go back and listen to it, and then it's going to become important to implement some of the things that you've learned, right? 1 hour a week. And if you're willing to allocate 1 hour a week, maybe it's Tuesday nights after dinner or Sunday mornings before church, whenever it is that you do it, but 1 hour a week in 6 months, you've got this down. And you've implemented protocols for your family that are help to ensure the quality of their health for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's some really great advice. It did take myself a little while to get my head around, because it was really, really overwhelming for myself when my son was first ill. And I keep saying it wasn't that hard. It really wasn't that hard once you just learn to just change. You're still having to eat. And I think I said this just the other day, we still have to eat, we still have to drink, we still have to do all this stuff. It's just changing what we drink, what we eat, and, you know, really building that immunity. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I've said this many times over the years that you make a deal with your family. One day a week, mom's going to try a new recipe. We're going to try a new recipe as a family so that we have more options in the future.
Yeah.
One day a week. And if it bombs and you don't like it, I'll pull the frozen pizza out of the freezer, right? Whatever it takes, you know, but you get an agreement that we're going to try something new.
Yeah.
But just be patient. Be patient and don't think you have to get it all at once.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't. It's overwhelming because Jade's got a number of great interviews that she's done, and the information is so incredibly valuable for you. But how do you hold it all? It's not possible to hold it all, you know. So be kind to yourself 1 hour a week, and you'll win. You'll have healthy families.
Absolutely. And I think again, I guess if there's any viewers watching where their children do have, you know, something really serious that they need to address right now, and this is why they're watching the summit and they're really interested in this summit, so their ears are fully listening, you know, then you for me, I took it all on board. I just did it all. I changed what I had to change. I changed what was taught to me.
Right.
I think when you're in an epidemic and you have to change quickly, I think then absolutely implement it all, and you just go on this journey and it all works out. But for the ones that are new to it all, just take one step at a time. Grab one bit of information, write it down, and just educate yourself. I think that's what it's all about. Educating, changing a few little things makes a big difference. Yeah,
exactly. And you're right that if you have a sick child, you need to dial it down right now.
Yeah.
And you just, in the US, we say hunker down. You just hunker down, you just get it done, whatever it is, irrespective of how stressful it is for you, mom, to do it. You just get it done for your children.
Yeah.
But in the big picture, understand that it won't always be that kind of high stress, freaking out, trying to figure out what do I feed my kids instead of ... You know, right now it may be stressful, but you'll learn how to do this. And in 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, you're smooth and easy with the dynamic, and you're doing the things that you feel great about for your family.
Yeah, definitely. And then you do you just want to learn more and more and more. And it just becomes part of your life. You just want to, whenever you've got time, instead of scrolling and not really knowing what to look for on the internet, you find, you know, you spend your time well because, you know, you're interested in it. So I don't waste my time so much now on the internet. I'm always researching and educating myself because everyone has, you know, their own advice. And I think it's cool. Really cool. Can you explain maybe to the viewers about, you know, the inflammation that, like, from the stomach to the brain?
Sure.
There we go.
There is a concept now that there's a great deal of science. I think I have 5 studies in my all-day seminar for doctors. That no human has the ability to completely digest wheat. No one, no human. That the structure of that protein is very difficult for the human body to break down. So there's no question that wheat has saved millions and millions of lives. There's no question at all. You know, when there's a famine in Africa and we ship boatloads of wheat over there, it saves thousands of people's lives, right? But when you eat wheat, it causes inflammation in the gut. And the videos of this now from Harvard are really clear. It's really cool. You can see it. The inflammation comes within 5 minutes of eating wheat, and it causes this thing in your gut called intestinal permeability. The slang term is leaky gut. Now, I'm going to back up and give you a little of the anatomy of how all this works. Mrs. Patient, your intestines are a tube. It's 20 to 25 feet long. It starts at the mouth, goes to the other end,
Mm-hmm.
It kind of winds around inside the middle of your abdomen there, but it's a big long tube. Just think of a donut. If you could stretch a donut out
Mm-hmm.
and you look down the hole of the donut, that's your intestinal tube.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
when you swallow food, it's still inside the tube. It's not really in your body yet. It's inside the tube. It's got to go through the walls of the tube to get into the bloodstream. And then all those vitamins and minerals and things go to every cell to feed the cells and make new cells.
Yeah.
So how does the food that you eat get through the walls of the tube into the bloodstream? The inside of the tube is lined with cheesecloth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you call it cheesecloth in
Yes.
Australia?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I knew exactly what you were talking about.
Okay. And it's lined with a cheesecloth, so only really small molecules can get through. So proteins are like a pearl necklace.
Mm-hmm.
And hydrochloric acid made in your stomach undoes the clasp of the pearl necklace. Now you have a string of pearls. And the enzymes that your body produces act like scissors to cut the pearl necklace into smaller pieces and smaller pieces, smaller and smaller and smaller, until you get down to each pearl of the pearl necklace. That's called an amino acid. And each pearl of the pearl necklace can go right through the cheesecloth into the bloodstream and then go somewhere to be used to make new brain cells or new bone cells or new energy for the heart muscle, whatever those pearls are going to be used for. But that's how we absorb our nutrients.
Yeah.
The problem is, and why is there 20 feet of intestines? Because it takes a whole lot longer to snip down prime rib compared to a banana.
Yeah.
And so some things take a long time, so you got to snip, 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 snip. So it doesn't get absorbed until it's further down the tube.
Right.
When you get a tear in the cheesecloth, that's called leaky gut or intestinal permeability. When you get a tear in the cheesecloth, these larger clumps of the pearl necklace get through the tears in the cheesecloth before they're supposed to be able to.
Wow. Yeah.
Those are called macromolecules, big molecules.
Mm-hmm.
So these macromolecules, maybe it's chicken, maybe it's tomato, it doesn't matter what it is. These macromolecules, when they get through the tears in the cheesecloth into the bloodstream, your brain that's monitoring everything in the blood says, whoa, what's that? Immune system, take care of that. That's not good for us.
It's like foreign invaders.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And the immune system then makes antibodies to fight the chicken,
Yeah.
or to fight the tomatoes, or to fight the papaya. It doesn't matter what the food is.
Yeah.
And so people who go and get a 90 food blood test to see if you're sensitive to any foods, it comes back and you're sensitive to 20 or 25 different foods. And it's, you say, oh my God, that's everything I eat.
Yes.
Well, of course it is. Of course it is. Your body's trying to protect you.
Yeah.
Because these macromolecules got through the tears in the cheesecloth before they were supposed to.
Yeah.
They're supposed to go further down to go snip, 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 snip. Now, here's what puts it all together. Every human, within 5 minutes of eating wheat, tears the cheesecloth.
Wow.
Wheat tears the cheesecloth in every human. And that's what they said in the study. So if you are a human, if you are watching this interview, I suspect that you are a human.
Yeah.
This relates to you.
Yeah.
Whether you feel it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And this relates to your children and this food that we've grown up with and that our ancestors ate. It's been on the planet. We've been eating it for 10,000 years, but that's only 1% of the time that humans have been on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And our genes have not changed to accommodate wheat. So wheat is, although it saves lives
Mm-hmm.
and it can keep you alive, it tears your cheesecloth.
Yeah.
And that's the trigger. These macromolecules getting into the bloodstream is the main trigger in the development of autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
Rheumatoid, multiple sclerosis, psoriasis, lupus, scleroderma, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cardiovascular disease. They all originate with these macromolecules going through the tears of the cheesecloth, getting into the bloodstream. Now, the macromolecules could be bacteria. It doesn't have to be food.
Yeah.
It could be bacteria. So you get this bacteria in your bloodstream. The immune system, the brain says, whoa, what's this? Immune system, let's go. And the immune system makes antibodies to fight the bacteria called Klebsiella. And if you fight the bacteria called Klebsiella, you have antibodies. If you have the particular gene that makes you vulnerable, when you make antibodies to Klebsiella, you might develop the autoimmune disease ankylosing spondylitis.
It's the long one.
Or if you make antibodies to another bacteria called Proteus, you may develop the autoimmune disease called rheumatoid arthritis. And so you go to the doctor with joint pains, and they try to give you medications to help with the pain in your joints, but the tears in the cheesecloth, the Proteus, keeps getting into the bloodstream. You keep making the antibodies to the Proteus, so you still have this inflammatory reaction going on. And if you are genetically vulnerable, the antibodies to Proteus start attacking the collagen in your joints, you get rheumatoid arthritis. But then you're trying to take the drug to put the fire out, but you keep throwing gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, fantastic.
Now
lining it.
That's the mechanism to all degenerative diseases. Yeah. All of them. Yeah. They all come from this same big. Here's the big picture. When you go to a doctor with a particular symptom, or your child has a symptom, it's like you've fallen over a waterfall and you've crashed into the pond below. And you swim up to the surface, you know, you spit out the water, and thank God you're alive, right? And you spit out the water, and you're trying to stay afloat in this pond of the symptom of diabetes, or in this pond of the symptom of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or autism. You're in this pond of symptoms, and you're trying to stay afloat, but the water's so turbulent because the waterfall keeps falling into the pond. So it's really turbulent. You're still living the lifestyle that's created the problem.
Yes.
You're in this pond. So everybody's looking for a life jacket in the pond of their symptoms. Yeah, wow. And so you want the life jacket with the least side effects possible. So many times natural products can work. If not, you need the drugs. Yeah. If you need the drugs, you take the drugs. Don't be foolish.
Yeah.
But once you've got the life jacket on and you're functional in this pond of diabetes or this pond of multiple sclerosis, then you have to swim over to the side of the pond, get out of the water, walk up the hill, walk back up the river, and figure out what the heck fell in the river that carried me downstream, and eventually I fell into the pond of diabetes.
Yeah, wow, that's such a good way of explaining.
And what you'll learn is, oh, really? If I eat that food, my blood sugar has a problem with it, and that gives me my symptoms, and that's why over time I've developed diabetes. Oh, wow. And then just go to YouTube, and I don't recommend this, therapy, but just go to YouTube and type in diabetes and a raw food diet, and watch the videos of people that completely reverse their diabetes in 30 days.
Yeah.
And you go, wow. Or get Dr. Bredesen's book, The End of Alzheimer's, and read that you can reverse Alzheimer's, the most fearsome disease. You go, wow.
Yeah, that would be the most horrible disease, Alzheimer's.
And then you understand, no matter what the symptoms are that your family is suffering from, it doesn't matter what they are. You need to get a safe life jacket, get out of the water, and go back upstream and figure out in the home environment, what's toxic, what's the poison, what foods don't work for my family or for my son or my daughter. You need to figure all that stuff out. And that's what's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But if you are patient and you understand, it's going to take me 6 months to really get this, then all of the interviews that you're about to listen to on this summit, you will appreciate, and you'll catch yourself say, yeah, I'm really overwhelmed right now, but that's okay. I'll get it over time. I'll get it. I'll just listen to it again and again. I'll get it. No problem. I'm grateful for the information. That's the way you do this summit.
Yeah.
And that's how you move your children and your family from disease to health.
Yeah, definitely. And see, I was diagnosed with borderline, when I say diagnosed, I had borderline diabetes, but I had a live blood analysis and found that out. Now, that was why I was falling asleep all the time. I fell asleep at the wheel with my children in the car. That was it for me. When I fell asleep in the car while I was driving, it was 3-4 seconds. Lucky, nothing happened. That was it. That was when I decided to get some answers. And I have been told there's no such thing as borderline diabetes. And I'm like, there is, because you have to start somewhere. I was just lucky I got onto it quickly. So I wasn't on the insulin and, all of that. I was just lucky I got it when I did, and it was borderline. And it still happens now. If I go out to a party and eat the wrong food, I can feel tired, bloated, lethargic. So it's still borderline. I just know exactly what to do.
It's the weak link in your chain.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a weak link. You pull at a chain, it breaks at the weakest link. Yeah. It's at one end, the middle, the other end, your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, wherever your genetic weak link is.
Yeah.
My wife and I traveled the world, and we interviewed 85 of the world leaders, the scientists in autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
And then we interviewed the doctors who were using the ideas from the scientists. Yeah. And then we interviewed the patients of the doctors who were applying the recommendations and reversing their MS and reversing their rheumatoid, reversing their autism, their child's autism. Mm-hmm. And we put this documentary series together called Betrayal, the autoimmune solution. And so you'll get the link here from Jade, that you go watch Betrayal to understand this dynamic of how all this stuff happens. Yeah. And then you're even more motivated to follow the recommendations of the experts in this summit to try for your family and see how it works.
Yeah. And can I just ask, so anyone that's watching that says, oh, but I have a whatever autoimmune, it's, all autoimmune, right, starts in the gut. Yeah. And like you said, you have to go and figure out what's affecting you, what's not, and maybe it's like a package, like I said before. So every autoimmune, because some people will think that theirs is quite unique. So
right, because that's what their doctors have told them. Here is the spectrum. Yeah. It's called the spectrum of autoimmunity. So I'm going to tell you one study. It's a little bit being a geek, a little bit, but I think it'll make sense.
Yeah.
Dr. Melissa Arbuckle is an MD, PhD at Johns Hopkins. And she went to the Veterans Administration Hospital in 2002 and looked for people with lupus. She found 132 people with lupus in this one VA center.
Wow.
Now, if they're in the VA center, they're veterans. If they're veterans, they were in the armed forces, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, somewhere. If they were in the armed forces, they had their blood drawn many, many times over the years when they were in the armed forces. Mm-hmm. What most people don't know is that the U.S. government's been saving and freezing almost all of that blood since 1978. They've got tens of millions of samples of our service people's blood.
Yeah.
Dr. Arbuckle knew this. So she went and asked for permission to look at the frozen blood of the people currently diagnosed with lupus when they were healthy in the Navy or healthy in the Air Force. And she got permission. What did she find? Every single lupus patient had the antibodies for lupus elevated years before they ever had a symptom. Wow. Years beforehand. Now, what does that mean? We all have antibodies to our thyroid, to our liver, to our brain, to our bones, to our muscles. We all have antibodies. That's normal because, Mrs. Patient, you have an entire new body every 7 years. Every cell in your body regenerates. Some cells are really quick, like the inside lining of your guts every 3 to 5 days. Some cells are very slow, like bone cells, but every cell regenerates. Mm-hmm. So,
and that's how the body's healable. That's how it can heal.
Exactly. That's how the body heals, is by these antibodies to your thyroid, getting rid of the old and damaged thyroid cells. It makes room for the new cells. Yeah. The antibodies to the myelin, that's the coating around your nerves. The antibodies that might get rid of the old and damaged myelin so you can make new myelin. That's normal. So there's a normal reference range for antibodies to your thyroid, as an example. When you have elevated antibodies to your thyroid, you're killing off more cells than you're making.
Yeah, wow.
It's elevated. It's outside the normal range.
Mm.
So Dr. Arbuckle found that all 7 antibodies to lupus were elevated years before they ever had a symptom. And that just makes sense, because if you're killing off more cells than you're making, eventually that thyroid or that immune cell or that brain cell is not going to be able to work the way it's supposed to. If you're killing off more cells than you're making, you create a deficit in the number of healthy cells.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually you start getting some symptoms. And what Dr. Arbuckle found was that the average was 5 years for all 7 antibodies, and some of those antibodies 11, 12, 13 years before they ever had a symptom. Those antibodies were elevated, killing off cells, killing off cells, killing off cells, killing off cells. So that period of elevated antibodies before symptoms begin, that period is called the prodromal period. That's a geek word. The prodromal period means beforehand, before there are symptoms. And that prodromal period is the window of opportunity to realize, whoa, something's going on in my brain right now. I've got 3 antibodies elevated to brain. That happened to me in 1997. Wow, I've got 3 antibodies elevated in my brain. What the heck is that about? I feel fine. I'm doing great. I was a triathlete. I was doing really well, very healthy, healthy business, healthy family. But I had 3 antibodies elevated in my brain. I called the laboratory and I said, what's this? This is a mistake. And they said, no, it's not. I said, do it again. We did. We know it's you. We did it again. Sorry. And that's when I really understood, wow, this spectrum of autoimmunity, that you develop the problem years before you ever get a symptom. Years. And then you get a symptom. And if you look at how long it takes once you go to doctors for symptoms, the average is 3.5 to 4 years of seeing different and 5 doctors before you get the diagnosis of an autoimmune disease. So you've been suffering for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, seeing different doctors, 2 doctors, 3 doctors, 4 doctors, 5 doctors. Nobody can figure out what's wrong with you. They tell you it's in your head, and it's not, unless it's antibodies to your brain, then it is. You know, but they just don't know what it is. And eventually there's so much tissue damage, now you get the diagnosis, as if you just got the disease now.
Wow.
Right? It happened way back there.
So you've got a little bit of work to do to get it back.
The goal is always get out of the water, walk up the hill, go back upstream, and figure out what happened. How did this start? Well, you know, this started about 3 years ago, doctor. And when did your basement flood? Well, it was about 3.5 years ago. Do you think that had something to do with it? Check your house for mold. And then you find there's mold behind the wall in the basement because the basement flooded and it wasn't cleaned up properly. And your family's been living in a house full of mold. And mold will destroy your brain. It'll destroy your lungs. It'll destroy your body. Subtle, but over time, it will do it. It's the most common cause of Alzheimer's. There's 5 different types of Alzheimer's. Inhalation Alzheimer's is over 60% now, we're finding. Over 60% of Alzheimer's is called inhalational. It's what you're breathing that's going right up to the brain as gasoline on the fire, killing off brain cells. So there's a whole world of stuff to learn, people. But the bottom line is, if you get the life jacket, natural when possible, so that you feel better right now, then you start the exploration just like Jade did. Get out of the water, walk up the hill, go back up the river, and figure out what the heck happened to my family. That's how you get healthy. And nobody's going to do it for you. No one.
Right, absolutely. And can I just say, so for the viewers that are watching right now, again, leaky gut, just so we can clarify, leaky gut is autoimmune. That's So
Leaky gut.
leaky.
There's a trilogy in the development of autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
First, you have to have a genetic vulnerability to that particular disease.
Yeah.
Second, there has to be an environmental trigger that sets it off, like wheat for celiac or Proteus bacteria for rheumatoid. There has to be some type of environmental trigger.
Yeah.
Third, you have to have a breach of the intestinal barrier. It's called leaky gut or pathogenic intestinal permeability.
Yeah.
That's how the environmental triggers get in and then act, and that's how the gasoline on the fire gets into the body.
Yeah. I just wanted to explain that because some people wouldn't put the two together, and that's why, and that's how the way you explained it was just perfect. So thank you for that, because that is leaky gut, and that's how we end up with the autoimmune diseases, and it's just healing that. And yeah, because I've been through that myself and with my son. So we have reversed it. I never say cured, because I mean, I'm no doctor, but I always say we've reversed it, and we need to keep up with his immunity. We need to make sure we have all those things eliminated from his diet and around the home, like the toxins. So there's so many things we did, and I've even written him a long note, a couple of pages, so that if anything happens to me, that he knows what he has to do to keep his autoimmune on track. And that might sound crazy, absolutely crazy, but if he goes off on his own one day and does his own thing and he starts feeling sick, I just wanted him to understand that he can reverse that again, just like I did. Yeah.
Marvelous. That's hard to do, and marvelous that you've done that.
Yeah.
And the scientists never use the word cure, because you've got the genes. This is your it's the weak link in your chain. Mm-hmm. So it'll always be there. So the term is arrest.
Yeah.
The term that they use is arrest the development of autoimmune diseases. You stop the development of autoimmune diseases by healing the gut.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone that's on, one last question, anyone that's on medication right now, what would you suggest? Again, like you said, just obviously they would stay on that and just go back, have a look at what could be causing the problem, start eliminating a few things, and then maybe what's your best advice for people that are on a lot of medication? I'll ask you, I won't say anything because I've got no idea.
Never stop your medications.
Yes.
Never. There's a reason why you're on them. And many people are on too many and too big a dose and all that, but don't stop. Go back. So you start listening to summits like this one, and you start getting information, and you try adjusting your diet, the foods that you eat as an example, and you notice that you're feeling better. Then you go back to your doctor and say, doctor, would you check my blood pressure again, please? Because I think I'm doing a whole lot. I've changed my diet. I've lost a few pounds. I'm exercising. I'm walking every day. And I feel really good. But sometimes when I stand up, I get a little dizzy now. Mm-hmm. And that's because the blood pressure medication's too high a dose. Right. You don't need that high a dose anymore because your body's working better. Yeah. And every doctor should be willing to work with and monitor you to transition you off the medications that they prescribe, which are designed to be short term. It doesn't matter if it's the antidepressives. It doesn't matter. When you look at the science, schizophrenia, as an example, there are many studies showing that for some people with schizophrenia, when they go completely wheat-free, their schizophrenia goes away.
Yeah.
Their psychiatrists take them off their medications, and they write and they say a year later, follow-up, the patient is still fine. Wow. And you see that again and again and again. So never just stop your medications. Always have the goal to reduce the need for the medications by get out of the water, walk back up the hill, and go back upstream. Yeah. And then you start exploring all the things that you'll learn, and you'll find you just start feeling better. You start functioning better. Yeah. And if your doctor won't work with you to reduce the dosage, find a new doctor.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that question was, for one, we were told to medicate. There were so many different things we could have done, and I chose not to go there. So I looked into things. That's when I started educating myself, and I had an amazing community that understood all that to explain to me, to help my son. But, some people that watch these summits or see these interviews and go, oh my gosh, I've got to get off all my medication. Like, that is really not the way to go.
Don't do
So
that.
I just wanted to, that's why I asked the question, just so that everyone sort of understands, because nothing worse than getting off and then, you know, having something go wrong, and then you're like, but I was told that, and it can be very overwhelming. But again, just go back to the basics, how we probably lived years and years and years and years ago.
Yeah, the first thing is, the most important thing to do is to start looking at what's on the end of your fork.
Yeah. Yes.
That's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, thank you. And can you just let the viewers know again about the betrayal, so the free gift that they'll receive?
Yes. You'll have the link on your thing there for betrayal, so that when you click on that link, you'll be able to go right to it and start watching it. It's all free to you, and it's 9 episodes, 85 interviews. It's really quite exciting. We put it together as a docu-series. It's more like a movie or a TV show with many episodes. Where you'll have 3 minutes of this person and 4 minutes of that one, and then the patient who reversed her MS, and she's crying out of gratitude because there's a picture of her that she holds up in a wheelchair where she can't walk, and 2 years later, she originally had 8 lesions on her brain. Now she has 2, and she has no symptoms just by changing her diet. Yeah. And so you'll hear all that kind of information again and again.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And for people that are watching and say that, oh, you know, I don't know if they're still sitting on the fence, like, start following people that like have been through the situation. Like you're saying, you interviewed the patients. People are, you know, healing themselves and reversing, you know, these diseases, and start following them, because they're the people that will open your mind a bit more, definitely. And obviously people like yourself, but I'm saying, you know, people that are sitting on the fence, really, it's the patients, I guess, you know.
So it's unfortunate to realize that in our world today, the corporate strategy is not to have a healthy planet and healthy people. The corporate strategy is to have a healthy company making high profits. And the result of that is that crazy stuff, like I said at the beginning about the wood pellets. They're clear cutting hardwood forests to make little wood pellets to send over to Great Britain so they don't burn coal, but they're creating more toxins in the air from burning the wood pellets. It's just, there's so much crazy stuff out there. You have to take ownership for yourself and your family. Yeah. No one's going to do it for you, but just take, you know, in the United States, we have a game called baseball. And so there's a phrase that I tell people, and that is, base hits win the ball game. Yeah. Just keep going for the little base hit to get on first base. Stop going for the home runs out of the park. You know, everybody wants the home runs, but just go for the base hits. The little things, the little wins that you do every day that become the habit. And then you add another little win on top of that, and that becomes a habit. And now all these habits become how you live your life, and you're really comfortable doing it. But base hits, just the little things, win the ball game. Wow. And I wish you all great success in this summit and health for you and your families.
Yeah, that's perfect information and advice. So I really appreciate it. Again, thank you very much. I'll have the link for the betrayal documentary. And again, thank you. Truly appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. See ya.